Okay, our next speaker is another example of someone cruising along in life and suddenly the UFO ET issue explodes into their world. Faced with a startling and challenging situation, she stepped up.
In her capacity as a staff writer for the Stephenville Empire Tribune, she was the principal reporter covering the sightings in and around Stephenville, Texas in January of 2008. Due to the proximity to President Bush's Crawford, Texas home, 70 miles, and the presence of F-16 fighters, these sighting events received international attention. Subsequently, our speaker appeared on CNN's Larry King Live and continues to do many interviews across the nation. The Mutual UFO Network Texas branch recognized her recently as the organization's lead investigative reporter.
Recently, she left the Empire Tribune and joined the Mandatory FM radio station in Stevensville as news director. Mandatory FM is a growing music station featuring Texas artists and the only local station with streaming online listening audience. But now, it's also Stephenville's official UFO information station.
Now, all this time, I still have never talked to Ricky Sorrells, but I've seen him on the news. It's just that I'm so inundated with calls and emails and trying to write for the next day and meet the deadline, I just didn't get to him. The next thing I know, he is calling me and he wants a meeting, and I say, sure. So he said, now, I'm going to come out there, but I don't want you to write about me. I said, okay, I won't. And first time I'd ever met the man, he said, I've been talking to Leroy Gayton, and somebody's bothering me. Something's going on. I'm having all these helicopters flying over my place. They are running my cattle to death. I'm afraid they're going to run them through the fences. Now, he has a regular job, you see, but like many people in rural areas, he has livestock, and that's part of his income. And it's a considerable investment for him. Ricky's only 37. So he had also had some phone calls and believed them to be military because they identified themselves as military. And he came to me out of concern for my safety. He said, I'm not here for you to write a story, Miss Joyner. I've had about all of this press stuff I want. He felt like he had been misled by the Associated Press. To him, it was like, okay, I just talked to these people. They said they were going to, a nonprofit organization. They're going to put it on the internet. It's going to be a story, and the video is going to be for them to back up the story. Well, that's the way he understood it. And then the next thing you know, he's gone to Tractor Supply to get dog food, and his phone starts ringing off the wall. People are going, but what are you doing? You're on the news about UFOs. He's going, what? I mean, he had no idea, and so it upset him. And he was concerned for me. He said, if people are harassing me and you're writing about this, then I think you might be next. And I felt like I had to warn you that this was going on. He said, I talked to Leroy. He said, I can trust you that you won't write about me if I ask you not to. I said, no, of course. I said, but Ricky, I believe you that somebody is really bothering you. Nobody's going to bother me because they know I'm going to write about it. And he said, well, you might have a point there. I said, I think you would be better off to go on the record, go public, because that might take some heat off, you know, if they know that you're not going to be quiet about it, that you're going to keep talking about it, then maybe they'll back off of you. He still said, no, you know, he's got a family, he's got 2 little girls, and he had an unwelcome visitor, and that was pretty scary for him. And I always forget, he sat across the table. I mean, I always remember he sat across the table from me. He said, if you told me a while back that I would be sitting here talking to you about UFOs, I would have said, no way, not in a million years. Now I know for the rest of my life I'll keep looking to find out what it was. And he is. He had a man come on his property about 1 o'clock in the morning. And the way that Ricky's home is situated He's got bird dogs in kennels on one end, and then he's got labs on the other end. Well, the dogs were making a ruckus, and something was going on. So he got up to look around and see what was happening, and he saw someone. And it was between the car and the pickup, and he said the man seemed to be rocking. He said, I know he could see me, and he said our eyes met, and he said he had his rifle, and he said I was debating what to do. And he said I was just about to open the door, and I thought, you know, I better not, because what if my family's in here? So just as he was trying to decide what to do, the man turned and walked off into the woods. And when Linda Howe came to visit with Ricky, he found this brand new bullet just dotted and it had been a misty night. So he feels like that man dropped this bullet. Of course, we'll never know that for sure, but he is a man that keeps up with his fence lines, and he knows his property inside out, and he knows pretty well that bullet wasn't there. So then we wound up on Larry King. That was an experience in itself. When the producers first came and talked to me at the newspaper, I said, okay, you know, I've already done 2 little things with CNN, you know, just remote through the telephone, but tell me again who you're with. Larry King Live. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So we did, Steve Allen and Claudette Odom and I did this show in Selden, outside, and it was 34 degrees. You don't know how cold 34 degrees is until you're wired up and you can't get up and walk around or anything. You just have to sit there. So that was an experience, and that was when I first knew about James Fox, and he was on that show with us, and he did come to Stephenville and interview me, and he was just in Stephenville again this past Wednesday, and I spent most of the day with him and Ricky Sorrells. Ricky finally agreed to that interview, and James expects his new movie, Beyond the Blue, to be out sometime in July. Steve Allen called me on January the 9th, and it was an afternoon call, and like most witnesses I've talked to, he prefaced what he had to say to me, and something like, okay, I really need to tell you something, but I don't want you to think I'm crazy. And kind of paused to see if I was going to have an open mind maybe, and I said, sure, go ahead. And he began telling me a story that I found pretty incredible. Steve is a pilot. He's pictured here with his Cessna. He keeps it at Clark Field in Stephenville. After he called, I did call the airport. I knew some people there and said, what about this Steve Allen? He's called me with a pretty wild story about something he saw last night. He has no idea what it was. The gentleman I was speaking to was the airport manager. His name's Todd Downs, and he said, yeah, I know Steve. He called me early this morning. I've been on the phone with the FAA all morning trying to help him find out what it is. So then I began making calls to the people that were with Steve, and I did this story. This is the first story I wrote. There was a lot of talk in the newsroom that evening. Of course, you know, we have to work to a deadline, and a lot of talk about this headline, possible UFO sighting. Some didn't want UFO in the headline. I did, and so did the publisher, because I kept saying, but UFO only means unidentified. It really doesn't mean little green men. And the argument was, well, that's what people think about it. David Curran. And I left Steve's office and went immediately to see David. You can barely see the little boy, but that's David's grandson. The other man is just a friend and was there that night. He did the filming. His name is Eric. But the little boy is the one that alerted David to funny lightning in the sky, Papa. And he really didn't know what he was talking about, went outside, saw something looking strange, went in and got his video camera. Now, some people think that that's shaky camera syndrome. It was a JVS 32 times optical zoom. I've seen the debunking of the video, and you know, they've done something quite similar. But I always go back to that little boy. You know, he talked to me about it too. Something caught that little boy's eye too, and I don't think it was a plane or a star that caught his eye.